The owner of this 2003 zinc yellow Terminator Cobra was a little bit suspicious of the history of the car. He said he had found out that the car was purchased brand new in Hawaii and that it wasn't registered or showed any sale records or anything until 2014. And soon after that, it was shipped back to the mainland. And that raised a lot of suspicions on a branded title or problems with the car, but everything checked out fine. Even the engine checked out fine. He did a compression test and it came back fine. And he started to think that it may have been used as a drag car. He said the car had been modified with an aftermarket cowl hood, a battery shutoff, which is that little metal thing right there on the tail light. They've drilled a hole in there and it's connected to a battery that's in the trunk. So when you're racing, if something goes wrong, somebody can slap that thing and it shuts off the battery, disconnects it. And the battery usually in that case is moved to the trunk to make place for a bigger cooling tank for the supercharger, intercooler, and all sorts of reasons like that. It also had a certified roll cage that was a bolt-in type, a T56 Magnum with wide ratio gears, a 3.4 Whipple 60-pound injectors, comp stage 3 cams, dual GT fuel pumps. The car was still IRS, but it had it all fully built with the full tilt boogie racing kit, 410 gears, and also some cooling mods. And this included the head cooling mod, which connects the back of the cylinder heads together so there's more flow of coolant and it keeps things a lot cooler. The Cobras are known to have problems with overheating the cylinders when the coolant doesn't flow enough. And so that's a modification that this car also had done to it. And of course the wheel and tire setup could be something that would suggest it's a drag car. A lot of times on the Terminators they grind the knuckles on the independent rear suspension by the toe link area or the tie rod end or the knuckle or whatever area that is. And so that's to make sure that a 15-inch slick can fit, a 15-inch wheel and a slick can fit. But you know, talking about the car, he said that it had Eibach lowering springs, the Rovo Cape Town wheels with Pilot Sport Cup 2s in the front, and the R888R Toyo tires out back. Those are kind of like a drag radial. Now obviously this is something that can change instantly, and a lot of times people won't sell a car sitting on drag tires. They'll get a set of wheels and tires from it. And in my opinion, being that it's not on the original Terminator wheels, that would kind of show that it is a car that has had the wheels changed on it before. So he was talking about the mileage and how it's not technically a super low mile car, which would indicate that it was used for drag purpose only, but it wasn't a high mileage car either. It had 33,000 on it, but when it had left Hawaii back to the States, it only had 24,000 miles on it. And something that puzzled him was that the car showed that it was in Oahu, and there hasn't been an active drag strip in Oahu for a long time, although some people said that the Oahu drag strip actually closed in about 2013. Now, something that was mentioned was that if the car came from Oahu, the car would have to have this recon inspection sticker before it could be shipped back to the mainland. And this shows that the car passes safety inspection and all those things. The other islands don't have this inspection, and so those other islands which do have drag strips on them are a place where this car could have been raced through its history. It could have been purchased in Oahu and then shipped over. And so that was the next assumption that people were talking about with this car. And during all this, I think the owner had a really great attitude about the car. He was suspicious that it was a drag car, but he had always wanted a Terminator. These cars meant a lot to him, and even when they were just coming out, he started liking them. And so he was happy that he got his hands on a good one that ran good, had good compression, that didn't seem like it was abused too bad, but it still was a nice car. And so I think that's really neat that he didn't really care so much about the history of the car, just as much as he wanted to know about the history of the car. So he was really searching to find out anything he could about the car. The next interesting suggestion was that the car was probably owned by a military personnel. And the reason for this is Hawaii has a huge military presence. My GT that came from Hawaii was purchased brand new by someone in the military. And the other thing behind this is that you can buy the car without sales tax and Ford will ship it to you, they say, even though this one was already in Hawaii. And the thing about that is it could have been registered in another country by a service member and they just happened to live in Hawaii. There's all sorts of things that it could have been from that. And with talking to the previous owner, this new owner found out that the previous owner before him was military personnel and so was the original owner of the car. So then someone with some information came forward and they said, if my memory serves me correct, this was one of the first Cobras with a 3.4 Whipple supercharger when it first came out, and they shipped the car to Maui, and it served a lot of time on the drag strip, and it ran good, although it had some timing problems, and the driver wasn't especially talented, is how they put it. It was fast, nevertheless, and he said that the car actually had performance work done on it by a performance shop of racers on the islands. He also asked if any of the body panels or parts had been replaced, and the new owner said, well, it does look like the rear bumper has actually been replaced on it, and that led to some questions. And so the person with this knowledge had lived there in Hawaii, and he said it was raced a very long time ago, right after the 3.4 Whipples came out, and then never seen again. And so then this picture of the Cobra surfaced, and this is the car racing in Maui. And what they were saying was that in 2007 these pictures were taken of the car, and that the owner had to ship it there every time he wanted to race. So that's why it didn't really have a whole lot of track use, but it did get to go and race sometimes. And so that's really cool. The person who posted this said that they were really excited to watch the car race. It was always a treat to see it come, and it was a really fast, potent car. And also that the car was very well cared for. And he also complimented the owner of this new purchase and said, this is a great car, you should be very proud to have it, it's really neat. And also, during some research, he looked through another list of the car, a listing when it was for sale, in 2014, and it mentioned that the car had an MMR block. So there actually could have been a lot of money put into this car. And something else that was said by someone who is way into detailing was make sure to get the car cleaned up, paint corrected, clay barred, all that stuff. Because if the car's been island hopping, which it was, then it probably has some volcanic ash or sulfur in the paint, in the clear coat, and that can do some damage over time. And so he wanted to get that cleaned up. And the new owner said, well, yeah, it actually has had part of the C-pillars and stuff repainted on the passenger side and also the roof. And so that's a possibility that that's why it needed that done to it. And like I had mentioned earlier about my 2001 Mustang Silver GT, that was in Hawaii when it was new, it did have part of the roof peeling, and that's the possibility of that's the reason why it was like that. The rest of the paint looked really good. Someone had also told me that it's a possibility that the salt water, the ocean air water could have done that to it and could have been hard on it and made it need to be repainted. And so I think this was a really cool story. It had a little bit of a mystery to it. It had some investigation. The car is what it is. It's really nice. It's a neat Terminator. It has history in Hawaii as being one of the few that was over there and racing. I've seen a few over there, a black one, a Sonic Blue one. You know, I've seen pictures of these other cars over there. So it's not the only Terminator that had been there, but it's one that people knew about and they got to see a race, and I think that's really cool. So I've been to Hawaii, and it was really fun to go over there and see some Mustangs over there, and I was always looking around to see what I could find. I saw Mystic 96 Cobra and some other Mustangs there, so it's really cool to have been there and think about this car being there. So it was a really neat story. I'm really excited for the new owner to have this car. And I'm thankful for everyone watching the videos. I hope you enjoyed this, and remember to stay tuned for more of these Mustang stories and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching.